Oh hey, didn't see you there. The unspoken rules that we're expected to learn over the course of our social lives are an interesting concept. Don't spit in someone's direction, don't kill, don't wipe your earwax on an infant on the midday train when you think no one's looking, all very arbitrary. So why don't we go ahead and do the same thing to ourselves in the vein of our egocentric search for constant media distraction mixed with our unusually high standards?
For as ridiculous as it sounds when straight up pointed out, the application of adding requisites to our watching habits as our time shortens isn't necessarily foreign or new. People will look up movie run times or limit themselves to a certain amount of gaming in the midst of adjusting to a non-stop society, like a functioning adult or something.
A what now?
Sometimes the understanding of unspoken ideas will spread around in some fashion, be it humanistic in nature, to limit one's media intake, or someone just broke protocol and decided to let the world know how hungry just isn't worth it.
Sacrifices have to be made.
The 3-episode rule is a made-up internet rule seemingly developed solely for anime. The general consensus of the rule's purpose nowadays seems to be to decide if a show's entire runtime is worth a watch through via the first 3 episodes. That's not entirely the point of it, but it's generally known for that, and it's somewhat understandable. I mean, are you gonna watch all of Little Timmy's Little League matches if he absolutely sucked the first 3 games?
I can do better, Dad, I promise!
In a way, I myself can understand it from an adult point of view. There's only so much time in the day, and there's even more anime coming out that is sometimes overwhelming in that regard too. Feeling like having your time wasted isn't fun, and maybe there's even an impending dread of FOMO. From the gross, to the boring, to the absurd, to the straight up stupid. If a show can't capture your attention within 3 episodes, you might as well just sit in the room with nothing to do for an hour and a half. Or watch half a game of Little League.
Dad, please believe in me again.
But with a system like that, there are bound to be substantial flaws and drawbacks to it. Namely, you generally can't always judge a show's worth by the initial episodes. I mean, imagine if we applied that logic to other things in life.
Alright, I just sent in my first 3 job applications ever, and I'm bound to get accepted into one of them. Heck, maybe I'll even get lucky and leave a good enough impression on all of them to warrant multiple callbacks. My life has no purpose.
The idea that an entire show's worth can be summed up by first impressions is silly. That's not to say there's no merit in getting an idea of a show's identity in that time frame, but often it's not so simple of a case that you can easily decide the critical value behind it. Seemingly fine anime can turn into major sewage fodder, while those that go under the radar can be found to be far more entertaining than even the bigger contemporaries that aired around the same time.
An example for me is Fuuka, a story about the development of a high school rock band developed by its titular character and its protagonist. What's his name?
This show is a prime example of how an anime fails to keep its momentum in forwarding the story into a well-written and well-paced narrative. What you expect out of a slice-of-life bildungsroman turns into a slow, monotonous melodrama focusing more on making the audience feel the mood, rather than naturally allowing the characters to take it in. But truthfully, it wasn't always this way. The first 3 episodes were fairly substantial, and on a personal level, I thought the characters, story, and writing were fine for the most part. And that's not to mention the animation and the music, which were consistently good throughout the show.
一緒に笑って一緒に過ごしたの輝いたメモリーズ忘れないからどんな色だった
But as the draw towards a more dramatic story became more apparent, its overall appeal as something that could be taken lightly wavered. But it wasn't until around episode 9 where the tonal drawl made it into a completely different show. And of course, for those who've read the manga, they know how vastly different the story became come episode 10.
And not to spoil anything, but it might have made the show a lot more interesting if it suddenly did turn into an isekai.
So it's not always going to be a home run in terms of how storytelling and storyboarding go for each individual show, but in turn, it could always get better as time passes on. Hell, for Black Clover, its first 20 to 50 episodes are rough to get through, let alone 3. But it does get better in its own ways, and now it's probably fine as is. So judging shows primarily on how you react to only the first 3 episodes is not the best litmus test to give your basic opinion.
And that's the inherent flaw with the 3-episode rule. It's not really meant to be used as the final verdict on whether you should continue on the show or not. Rather, it's more of a way to introduce you to the plot, characters, art, and storyboarding. In a way, it's more of an appetizer course for whatever you're hopefully about to consume willingly.
It's more of a way to gauge how the feeling of a show will retain your attention for however long it'll go, by giving you that first impression experience. The idea that you can stop after 3 episodes is more of a side effect to how that gauge works.
And that's completely understandable. If the 3 appetizers you were served seemingly came from a back alley dumpster behind a terrible fast food restaurant, then you would probably reasonably think that the rest of what you're about to eat is also in the same vein. To which I ask, what Arby's is serving full-course meals now?
But what I am saying is that the rule isn't explicitly a catalyst meant to help watchers decide their ever-growing list of will watch, or at least not initially. It's more of an understanding of the potential and progresses of what a show may potentially become for the audience's convenience.
The first piece of evidence I can offer to give this idea more credence was actually said early in this video, that how a show turns out is not completely dependent on how the first impression is.
And while it actually seems counterintuitive to what I was just saying about it being impressions versus the rest of the show, it does point out the flaw of the current understanding of the rule, that 3 episodes is enough. On the contrary, it could take 9 episodes to reach that point, or it'll actually improve beyond 3.
Which brings me to my next point. You can stop at any time.
For as sacrilegious as it sounds to not finish a show you've been watching for a while, let's be real. If your watch list is growing, it will probably keep growing. Maybe you'll finish everything you put on there, but not everyone will. Some people, myself included, leave off on shows and don't come back for years.
At that point, you could rewatch what you've forgotten, try to remember things through wikis and such, or just stop, like some sort of sane person or something. But it is telling that we would rather hoard the thoughts of continuing on a show that honestly would probably not have any significant impact on their lives, rather than just letting it go. I mean, after all, weebs are the most well-adjusted and mentally stable people on the planet.
That's not to say it makes the 3 episode rule completely moot, but I think the convenience of knowing that maybe you can keep watching without limiting yourself to 3 episodes should be the more accepted standard. I mean, what's really stopping you from stopping? Social stigma of dropping after the quote-unquote drop-off? The mental battle knowing you didn't finish a show?
I mean, I don't mean to trivialize the feelings of OCD people or rule followers, but
That's asinine.
The things about unwritten rules means that they're not written in stone. Do whatever the heck you want. Follow him, don't, whatever. And frankly, I don't think anyone worth your salt would care.
I certainly don't. Especially at this point.
With the 3 episode rule, it's not concrete, so all of what I'm saying could just be seen as legitimate or illegitimate as much as the next guy's opinion. And it's not like I totally disagree with how the modern rule works either. I get that not every show's gonna be great, and the first episodes are imperative to showing that. I've been in Arby's before. It's just that the rule itself is a somewhat puzzling enigma of a concept in the first place. While its origins are unclear, its presence in weeb culture is undeniable. That being said, it's heavily flawed and honestly pointless to an extent that it's bizarrely purgatorial, if that even makes sense. It's just stuck in this perpetual state of always having been there, yet just being there points out the basic imperfection of its paradoxical purpose. Sort of like how Little League's supposed to bring out the best in the kid, yet it still won't make the parents proud of them.
My life has no meaning.
But I do get it. At the least, it's just a fun little testing of the waters for you to tread before fully committing to full laps. At the most, it can operate as a way to help you navigate your energy, entertainment spending, time management, and overall anime enjoyment should the rule provide the details for you. Ultimately, the use of your time when bundled with a helpful guide is not a bad tool to take advantage of, but it's not the ultimate decider of how good or bad a show is. You are, and I don't think it's entirely fair to judge an entire show if you just gotta stop at 3 episodes. It's through the course of the show and its progression is where I find that there's more substance to give claims and opinions because, well, it's the fuller story. It's not just the 3 episodes, it's an entire linear project that taps into the potential or drawbacks of the direction and storytelling. The work and care, or lack thereof, isn't surface level. There's bound to be more to it. But for what it is, while it's not perfect, the 3-episode rule will understandably stay in the cognizance of the ongoing weeb community. Maybe for some as a neat little happenstance, for others a rule of thumb, but definitely not going anywhere, unlike a bunch of shows you might drop because of it.
The 3-episode rule is a fascinating weeb culture. It's not pointless, nor is it really harmful. It's just kind of there. And while it's not my ideal way of watching shows, I don't make the rules in watching anime. I'm not sure anyone's ready for that disaster. All I can really say is that while it's not for me, it's not by any means meaningless in weebdom. Now, if you'll excuse me, I have a father to disappoint. No, not with this. That's how you speedrun losing your parents' faith.